Good morning, good evening, good night. And in this scene in Red Cross, New York, we see Dr.Mega and he's waiting in a coffee shop called the Daily Grind. And he's called that he's met before and he's set this time and a place to meet us. So he's just sitting in the coffee shop sipping a coffee and just waiting for this woman to show up.
He waits about 20 minutes or so after she said she was going to be there. And she does come through the door. The little bell hung over the door frame itself to give it sort of an old hipster feel to the whole place. Um, Sort of chimes out as she walks in, shaking off the sort of knit cap off her head that's covered in snow. And she takes off the gloves and rubs her hands together before spotting Dr. Mega and heading over in his direction. Stopping at the bar to get a cup of coffee. And actually, she brings a whole coffee pot over with her mug and sits down at the table and places the mug in between the two of them as she immediately goes for the creams and sugars and puts an excessive amount of both into the coffee before finally taking a sip out of it.
Well, it seems like you certainly like your coffee.
It's the one thing in the world that I can imbibe without anybody batting an eyelash.
Well, I'm on a health kick myself. I've been drinking green tea for the past 20 minutes. Nice to see you so fashionably late.
Well, traffic. What can I say?
Hey, it's New York. Traffic's traffic.
Well, coming all the way up from downtown was a bit of a hassle today with all the snow on the sidewalks. I eventually just said fuck it and got a cab.
How was your cab? Did you know where he was going? I didn't know his ass from his elbow.
He did all right, but it smelled like curry.
Hey, cab's cab.
Cab's a cab, indeed. So, aside from tardiness and, well, a very short span health bent, do you have what I asked for?
I got what you want. And with that, he'll reach down and out of the satchel, he'll pass you this a plain folder and hand it across the table to you. Go. There it is. It's all the people who've come in and have OD'd in my hospital since we last spoke. All the records are there. What happened is there. I've had a funny look when I've been using the Xerox machine, but no one's really questioning me too much.
She'll
But
go.
there's
Go ahead.
but there's nothing that untoward. I still don't really know what you're looking for, but everything that you want's in there.
Well, I'm hoping I can figure out myself what I'm looking for. And she opens up the file and starts thumbing through various files, doing kind of more of a glance over than really going in depth looking at each file. And then she closes the folder and then places it into her uh, messenger bag and then looks back up at him. So no one gave you too much of a problem then?
No, as long as I don't cause too much of a scene or act funny, I suppose I can pretty much get pretty much what I want. Within reason, obviously, of course.
Hmm.
Comfortable. Patient confidentiality doesn't really matter that much when they're dead. It doesn't, if you know what I mean.
True. In this case, hopefully, dead men will tell tales.
What do you mean?
One of the worm's easiest ways to infect the populace is through pharmaceuticals, through drugs, through alcohol, through pretty much anything that any of us use for every day, take for granted. Cosmetics, even.
Really?
She nods, kind of just quietly.
What? How? Is there any? Would you give me some clues on how I could see this? Do you guys know how it affects people?
I don't have many details. I've only seen it a handful of times myself, but I'm starting off where my father, before me, started, where he left off, before he
I mean,
found new accommodations and new positions.
when you say cosmetics, is it a company that does it? Oh,
I've only heard various rumors, not many. I am going to roll an intelligence and Garu lore, and I'm going to put it at a difficulty 8 just to make sure everything's on the up and up on this one. Let's see here. Intelligence 3, Garu lore 2. And I'll go ahead and spend a willpower point on this. So difficulty 8. I get 2 successes. Okay. She just kind of folds her hands in front of her. There is a going understanding within the nation, and I don't know how much you hear about it or not, but there is a company called Pentex.
I don't know of it.
It's a holding company. It seems to have its arms everywhere, like those mega pharmaceuticals or those kind of companies that are nameless but have their finger in everything.
Is there a list of companies that are associated with Pentax?
Not that I've been able to drum up. I'm sure that there are plenty, but they're guarded. Every time a trail comes up, it always goes cold soon after.
I can imagine. But this is very worrying, Miss Chevalier. I mean, how far did it go? I mean, could I be giving people prescription drugs or injecting worm into people without even knowing it?
It's very much a possibility. It's one of the reasons I tend to. My dealings, what I do to make a living, put me in contact with some of the darker aspects of society.
Well,
And she'll
I,
just open up her packet or her pocket and pull something out in her hand, and she'll use the other hand to motion for his.
he'll reach out.
And she'll place something in his hand and then close it so he can, put it in a more discreet place to actually open it up.
What is this?
And it's a little plastic baggie filled with a just off-white substance. Almost looks like sand.
I don't, I don't get this, Miss Chevalier. Is this your product? What is this?
It's what I do.
Yes, we've gone over this before. You
Mhm.
showed me a little white bag before.
I take care of a more organic type of opiates. And I've been looking for more, well, designer drugs as of late. That's why I
So,
keep looking for your ODs.
okay. So, do you think these agents of the worm are basically picking off habitual drug users? I mean,
It's the easiest place to start. Nobody's going to notice if a couple of junkies OD or if junkies get overly addicted and then lose their minds and go on a rampant killing spree.
true,
Or a
true.
stock trader on a bad trip decides he wants to murder his family.
Well, these things do happen. Have you got evidence that this actually does happen? Have you found someone that has been affected by some kind of worm taint in what they've taken?
Not here in
Whether
the
it be,
city. I've only been here a month, and it takes time to get established.
there are a guru that can sense worm.
Yes?
Have you got that skill yourself?
Not yet. I have other gifts that let me, well, see things for what they are.
Good skill. But
It doesn't quite, it's not quite as pinpointing as sense worm is. That much I can tell you. But I can definitely smell something that doesn't smell right.
if you did find a substance that someone was taking legal or otherwise, does that mean that you could distinguish if it was tainted?
That's a bit harder. It's easy to smell a living individual. They constantly put off a certain aroma, if you will. Like I can walk into a room and immediately tell that you're kinfolk.
I'm glad. I can tell that you're guru, but that's a term I've kind of picked up over the years.
Yes. Inanimate objects, substances, it's much harder without the actual gift to be able to sense things.
Is there, I know what we do, what the Garo Nation does in exactly Western science, but is there a way that that worm taint can be measured by mundane methods that I can use?
Now that's a proposition that I had only given a passing thought to. And turns out that maybe I was right to associate myself with you, she says with a smile as she takes a very long uh, sip out of her cup of coffee.
Well, it's all for the good fight, Miss Chevalier.
Yeah. I suppose the first thing I'd have to do is track down an actual contaminated substance and then bring it to you.
Or you could track down a contaminated person and bring them to me.
Contaminated people are easy to sense.
Can
Finding substances is more of a direct path from point A to point B. But I suppose we all have to start somewhere.
If you bring me a person that's contaminated, I can take samples of them. And are these people too far gone? Can they be saved?
Generally speaking, everybody in the city has some form of worm taint in them.
I know, but they're not for Mori. I mean, there must be somebody on the turn.
I think once a
Which
person becomes
can them.
Fomori, they're too far gone. The process to alleviate them of that condition would probably be just as painful and drawn out as them existing as a Fomor.
What I'm trying to say, Miss Chevalier, is that if you could bring me someone that doesn't matter, that people won't miss, we could get more out of them.
She sits back and crosses her arms slightly and looks at him. I thought the first tenet of your oath was do no harm.
The oath doesn't apply to Warren. And if there's some past soul out there that's too far gone, then we can learn from them and save others.
I didn't know the Furies had it in them.
I'm not exactly a normal fury.
No, you're not.
Over the years, I've become more pragmatic. I've got over what I am and what I can and can't do. But when the shit hits the fan, I mean, come on, you guys rip the shit out of pretty much anything you want to, really. Why not get one of those creatures and use them to some good use?
Because the Garu nation as a whole isn't as progressive as, well, as you might hope.
Well, it was just a passing idea, if you want to run up on it. Or, hey, how about this? How about we find someone that we know is being tainted, but we set up a fake clinic or fake program? We can study them.
That might be a little bit more workable.
And maybe we could get a guru that can sense worm as well. We can start to distinguish how far gone they are and what's doing it, and trace back those little white bags or those little tablets with prescriptions.
If we're going to do this in enterprising fashion, try and tie up loose ends and things of that nature, find all of our ins and outs, we're going to need somebody who has connections to the police.
I'm afraid I can't help you there. I've got no connections. I don't really know any guru that does, but there must be one somewhere.
And that's what I want you to do. For obvious reasons, I can't get close to those kinds of people.
Okay. So you want me to make contact with police?
I want you to first find individuals in the set. Just mention it in passing when you talk to our fellow setmates. Just talk to them. See if you can pluck out of them little bits of information. See who has connections. If there's anybody who does have connections to the police, we start there. And failing that, you're a doctor. You work in the ER and you see police every day.
Yes, I do. And sometimes on scene, if things are really bad, I go out with the paramedics. Although it's not an everyday occurrence.
Right. Perhaps you can find a detective, perhaps a narcotics detective that's coming in to interview you. That might be a start. Who knows, maybe it'll be a lady detective and you can use those noble features of yours to try and get her a little bit more amenable to our cause.
If it's some other guy, I would do it with relish.
She just kind of smiles. Either way.
It might be handy as well. If I do open up such a place, it might help me get a carrying license for my weapon.
She kind of nods as she thinks it over. True.
They're not cheap and they're very hard to get. You need to prove it, that you need it, unless you're a celebrity or you've been an ex-law enforcement officer.
Or you getting good with the cops.
It depends how good you are. I'm sure if you've got an illegal firearm, they're quite strict about it.
You're
Not in the
not.
South here.
Why don't you start volunteering some of your time at some of the clinics in Harlem?
Why Harlem?
Harlem's still a rough neighborhood in certain places.
Could do. It could do. If it's rough, I'm sure I'll be in contact with more of the unfortunates that are hooked on your produce. Or similar.
There's that, and there's also... It's a justification if you go to a magistrate and ask for a license that way. I'm going into a rough neighborhood. I'm a wealthy doctor.
I'm not wealthy. I'm still in debt.
You get my point.
I do. There's no point me going here and doing this work if I get picked off really quickly. I'm only about to fire a gun, but at least it may give me a chance to get away if I run into one of these Fomori's or guy off a bit of Black Spiral.
Well, if anything of that nature starts coming, you need to cut bait and just run.
Oh God, no! I'll run with my tail between my legs to the sept and curl up in a ball and cry, while the rest of you can protect me.
You don't want to get caught by one of them, believe me.
No, I've heard stories, and my dear wife was killed by them a long time ago.
It's almost a pity about them.
What
You know the
way?
tale of how the Black Spirals came to be?
Not for a long time.
Tribe on the brink of oblivion, and they went for one last stand, hoping they could pull it out. It was a noble thought, and yet it fell through.
Well, it seems we're on the brink of oblivion now. You best not make the same mistake.
Yes. Fight smart. Don't go in charging headlong when you don't know what's hiding beneath.
I don't know your past history, but I assume you've been in combat with agents of the worm. Have you ever spoken to a black spot?
You'd be
Are they as
surprised how
mad?
much. You'd be surprised how much they like to talk.
Are they as insane as people say they are?
She kind of leans back and sighs a bit. I've only ever come across two that actually bothered to speak. And those two, we had outnumbered. And it's the only reason I'm probably still here.
What did they say?
One was just as everything that you would think they are, slathering. Would speak in a way that makes a Saturday morning villain on a cartoon roll their eyes. Almost like they're putting on a show, like they're falling into a trope they think they need to be in. But every bit as dangerous as you'd imagine.
Hmm.
The other one, she was calm and collected, and she used reason when she spoke, trying to get out of what she knew was likely an inevitable end.
Did she put across a good point?
I think there are those within their ranks that believe what they're doing is the right thing.
Still, I do pity them somewhat, foul creatures that they are.
I almost admire her in a way.
You best only say that to me and not anyone else. People would be talking about you like they talk about Alicia soon.
I admire conviction, not their methods. She
Very
truly believed what she was doing was the right thing. The way she put it across was, in order to fix the world, we have to wipe it clean first.
a very extreme point of view, but
I've known Garu within the nation that think that way.
isn't that why humans, where humans go apeshit when they see you change? The racial memory of the old days, the guru hunting them down.
Partly, yes. They take it to a more extreme, I'd imagine. Rather than just culling to keep numbers in control, they want to destroy everything and then rebuild, perhaps in the worm's image. That's what I would imagine. But the way she spoke, it almost seemed like she wanted to get back to balance, back to the way things used to be.
I don't think the worm would really want that. I know the
Hmm.
stories. Wild Reaver and Worm, the web, the madness, and the pain. Maybe the worm's just too far gone. It's like all those poor bastards out there inject themselves with all this taint.
It's probably best if it were put down. That's what we strive for anyway, to crush it. But I wonder if there was ever a chance for it to be redeemed.
Well, if you're going to go waxing on philosophical, it's a needed part of nature, is it not? If the worm was doing its job, it would just consume waste. Must not want it, like maggots, I suppose. It's only because Weaver poked it around too much that it went a bit crazy.
Yep. Almost makes you think that perhaps the real enemy is. And she just kind of points around to everything in the cafe.
Don't say that. Monsieur Verrier, I'll never look at my iPhone the same way again.
Well, there's a reason most of the elders won't let you bring one into the sect proper.
But you still speak to Weaver spirits, don't you know? I
Me?
had an opportunity. Well, I mean, the Guru Nation in general, they do deal with Weaver and Weaver things.
That's more cockroaches, children's
Oh,
line
okay.
of expertise,
And
not
what?
mine.
What about all the spiders?
Which ones?
The ones that are on all the buildings when you
Oh,
look into the
the
Umber.
net spiders and various other weaver spirits.
I had a chance to look into the Umber for the first time a little while ago. It was a shock. I'd heard stories about what cities looked like, but I didn't expect it. Do those things attack you? All those spiders on the buildings of the web?
Depends on how close you get. Depends on. I've noticed in my experience, as long as you don't get close, they won't leave their webs. Unless they have some direct purpose.
Well, the only spirit I've really had any contact with was Pelican, and I fed it fish so it could give me a gift. I've never actually met one that meant me harm, thankfully.
She sort of leans forward. You can use gifts.
Yes, there are kinfolk gifts.
I'm well
Gaia
aware
has
of that.
blessed us with something. I've been, well, I know from a long time ago, it was my great grandfather actually, he could heal people with his hands. It's a kinfolk gift called Eve's Touch, similar to Mother's Touch, although it's not as good. And I've got that now, and it works.
I'm surprised you aren't higher up in the hospital, or at least in the medical scene here in the city, if you're able to heal people in such a way.
Remember the veil, my dear, the veil. I
True.
can't be walking around being a Jesus figure. That wouldn't be very good at all, would it? In
No, but I
fact,
imagine that during surgery, you make yourself look to be a much better surgeon than you already are.
I'm not a surgeon, I'm a doctor, and I work in ER. I can do it, but it has different levels of success. And the first time I tried it out, I was with a tribe mate of yours, Andre.
Hmm.
He helped me get into a hospital where I knew there was a burn victim, a poor woman that was affected from the battle in the power station. He made himself go invisible, which is a nice trick. And then we had Donald, a glass walker, stop the security and the cameras so we could go in. And I used my gift for the first time. Although Andrew was bitching and moaning all the time, saying it was a pointless waste, saying it was a risk we shouldn't take. Only use it on kin. Only use it on kin, he kept saying.
Andre is. He's a traditionalist, from what I can gather.
Well, it seems that quite a lot of the guru are traditionalists. So I will use my gift, but I will use it sparingly when I know no one can notice it.
Yes, it's
And I've
true.
heard there are others as well, and I intend to find them out. If you do find any in passing, can you please tell me their name?
Well, there is one that recently came into the sept, actually last night. I don't know if she has any particular talents, but I'll tell you she is a fearsome, fearsome woman.
A kinfolk, what?
Yes.
Who? The only other kinfolk I know is Melly. Bonar.
This one's name is Bettina, and I do believe that she is betrothed to our dear warden.
Is she really?
And
So
she
she must be.
is. Danica just nods as he starts that sentence with a big shit-eating grin. I got to meet her last night.
And
She's interesting, fierce, and I don't think she's afraid to get up right in Garu's face at all.
when you're a spouse of a guru, you can take liberties others can't. I know this from experience. Although, is she
Somehow
the
I
same tribe?
imagine, yes, she is part of his tribe.
I've never met the warden, I've never spoken to the warden myself, but I was in a meeting once when he was telling people what to do and how to do it. He seems quite efficient.
He's. How can I put this? He's not what you would think at first glance.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Potentially both. There's nothing more frightening than a get that thinks. Gross exaggeration, but it's true, and you can tell that there is certainly something going on behind that warrior mentality. That there's guile there. That is a dangerous, dangerous combination.
What about this Bettina? Has she got gall behind the eyes? Can you see a spark?
I'm not necessarily sure. I see a great deal of pretentious attitude in her. At first glance, anyway.
Oh well, I'm sure she'll get that beaten out of her at some point, whether it's by her husband or not.
I'm not necessarily sure about that, Anthony. I'm really not.
We'll see.
If she's willing to stand up to a Garu that she's never even met before, and she just kind of motions to herself a bit, then that must mean she believes that she can back up her attitude. And as a Get kinfolk, I am going to assume that that's fairly true.
Well, if she had a dearest husband to be beside her, I assume it's an arranged marriage.
That's what I have gathered.
That's how it was with me a long time ago.
Well, what was your wife like?
Her, well, she was a big ball of rage and scar tissue, and I loved her. It took a while, but we did love each other in the end. And then we had children, and then she died fighting the worm. And then my children were taken away from me for their own protection. And then I left.
Do you know if any of them bred true?
Both of them did. We had kin fetchers and spirits say that they were guru. Do you know how often that happens, Monsieur Chevalier?
Both? Very rare.
Yeah, hardly ever. It was seen as a blessing from Gaia. When she died, they wouldn't even tell me how she died. And then they took away my girls. And they told me to breed again. I lost my temper and I attacked the alpha. Ended up in hospital for about 2 months. Then I left, went to college and went to medical school. The past few months have been the first time I've been with Girl Nation since then for well over 11 years.
Your kids should be teenagers by now, then.
They should be. Still not been told how they're doing or what they're like. My older sister contacts me every 2 years or so, tries to get me to go back home. Things turn sour when she won't tell me how my wife died and what my girls are doing.
I have another proposition for you.
Yeah.
What would you be willing to give if someone could get you that information?
A lot.
She almost kind of, almost looks like she's about ready to retch in part of a way. I have connections within the Silver Fangs.
How are the Silver Fangs connected to my tribe?
The Silver Fangs, despite everybody's opinion of them, hold quite a bit of sway. When they ask for something, they still usually get it.
How does that apply to little old me?
If I were to contact this person in the Silver Fangs, I'm pretty sure that she might be able to pull in one or two favors for me. As much as I
You
hate
think
it.
she could get me to see my children?
I don't know about C, but I could definitely proposition to get information about them, how they're doing.
When, forgive me, when you first changed, how did it happen for you? Were you in a family unit? Were you just a lone wolf, so to speak, that would just woke up one day?
I was at a party with my boyfriend at the time.
Did you still have a boyfriend after?
I didn't have a boyfriend and I didn't have any friends.
Did you not see them again, or did they end up in your claws?
She just sort of fishes out from her bag and puts out a cracked class ring on the table.
Mega will reach over and was it? So did you say a class ring?
Class ring, like a high school ring.
Okay, sorry, I don't know. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
So, Mega will pick it up and go, and
It was the first time I'd ever experienced an adult relationship.
oh,
And it just went downhill from there.
I can imagine. He he's shocked, but he does give out a kind of nervous laugh and hands it back. But what age were you when this happened? Sorry, you must have
14.
been about 18, 19.
I was 14 at the time.
Were your family kin?
My mom was Ken, and my dad is Garu.
I'm asking these questions because when my children do make their change, I should be able to see them then, shouldn't I, at least?
I think they'll have some say in it at that point. You might have some say in it.
Because I know that, what is it, there's that, is it Aaron?
Mm-hmm.
He's the, I forget the term for it now, but he looks after the cubs at the set, does he not?
Oh, our den mother.
I wonder what my daughter's den mother's like.
I've only heard tales of what the Furies are like, and the few that I've had the distinct pleasure of meeting. They're girls. I'm pretty sure that they'll take care of them. Their maternal instinct is legendary.
It is. It is.
Although Mama's silver fang kinfolk seems to have just as much.
With all regards, I've heard some unpleasant stories of how the Silverwings treat their kinfolk.
Well, my mom is not of my tribe. That's the problem.
Okay. What was she? Hope you don't mind me asking.
As long as you don't have loose lips.
Hey, I think a lot of what we're saying here is going to be kept between us. You can trust me.
I am going to activate Truth of Gaia on that one. Out of pure survival instinct. What's your, is it manipulation and subterfuge? How many dice do you have on that one?
Manipulation 3, subterfuge 2, so 5 dice.
5 dice. Just let me double check the gift here so I don't get it wrong. Truth of Gaia, intelligence, empathy, difficulty, manipulation, subterfuge, difficulty 5. And I think I have 5 dice for this. I do. So in the terms of I can trust you, I get it works. So is that a truth or a lie?
You can trust him, it's the truth, especially if you might actually give him a link to his daughters as well. But he's definitely not going to betray you.
Fair enough. My mom is a Silverfang,
Oh,
and one who had certain duties.
I assume they didn't include mating with a Shadow Lord.
Not in the slightest. When my sister and I were about 10, he came into our room, told us we needed to gather our things, and we left. That was the last time I saw her.
How long ago was that?
Too long.
Would you ever want to find her again?
I know through the grapevine she's been trying to find me and my sister. And
Yeah.
we've been kept away. We've been told to stay away.
Why?
Shadowlords were no more thrilled about my father breeding with a Silverfang kin as her tribe was probably no less thrilled that she had Shadowlord children.
How does that work, by the way? Did you choose what tribe you wanted to be? Is it just because your father was the guru who took you into the Shadow Lord?
I'm not really sure how that works. All I know is that there's a certain affinity that I have with Grandfather Thunder. Suppose the spirits chose for me what side I came out on, I suppose.
So your sister's a Shadow Lord too?
Yes. She's kin. She didn't breed true like me.
Oh well, you can't have everything.
It works out pretty well.
Are you staying in contact with her?
Oh, yes, of course. I have her up in the city somewhere.
Don't worry, I'm not going to try and dig her out.
I prefer to keep her away from set politics.
I know you're
She
protecting.
is guileless. Very easily taken advantage of.
Well, then maybe she's out of the picture then. Although I have noticed with Guru that they can be a tad overprotective with the Kenfolk. The lower orders understand more than you realize. And they can do more than you realize too, if you give
No,
them the
I'm well
chance.
aware of what kinfolk are capable of. Despite her shortcomings, I can tell you that Dominique is very capable. And a lot of the headway that I've made over the past 5 years have all come from her, in some form or another.
But I'm glad that you've got such a nice sibling relationship.
Well, we sort of had to. While my father was in the picture, while we were still growing up and I hadn't turned, we didn't see him much.
Maybe he was waiting.
He he came to see us at least once a month. I don't think there was ever a month that we went by where we didn't see him.
I
But
mean,
all the same, it was just her and me, generally speaking, with a relative we really didn't know.
well, now you're a fully fledged guru, you can understand how bringing up a child can be troublesome when you're fighting all the time.
Well, partially. I have no aspirations for children just yet.
Nay, it seems to be pushed upon all of us. We will have to breed for Gaia.
At some point, but I still have yet to become a foster. Told myself that I was going to make something of myself before I even fathomed the idea of having a family.
Jesus, it's like working in a corporate company. If you're pregnant, it quashes your promotion prospect.
Sometimes we have to think like a pragmatist.
Well, you can be less cautious when you have no one to protect, I suppose. More willing to sacrifice yourself.
It's a little easier to throw yourself into the fray when you don't have to worry about who's going to be taking care of who.
Indeed.
But
And that's what
anyways,
seven mothers are for, I suppose.
true. And I've sat here and rambled on and on and on and on. You gave me what I wanted, and you had something to ask in return, information.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the information about your children is a totally different deal.
Agree.
This one, however, I'll give you a bit of information, but I'm going to tell you that speaking about it publicly could very well get you killed.
Well, then I won't speak about it publicly.
You know all the hullabaloo that's going around about Alicia and her mingling with outsiders?
Yeah,
I know her little secret.
I don't, it seems. I know that she's very close to a mage.
You do know that she's close to a mage. Exactly how close?
Well, if they're modern friends, it's up to them, isn't it? I'm sure these people are just as coy about it as ours.
It might be one-sided. I know the mage, Jericho, or Jack, or whatever he calls himself, is enamored with her. But that's not the information that I got.
You think she's playing him?
I think she is every bit as naive as one would assume that someone who would talk about their dealings with vampires and mages and demons.
I do wish she wouldn't say that. At least when she's with other people. I don't kind of care when she's chatting to me. But appearances.
Appearances. I believe that she has tracked down a cairn, and she is
What?
allowing this mage to have access to it.
How has she tracked down the can? There's only one can in New York.
I very highly doubt that the cairn, the Sept of the Green, is the only place of power that Gaia has brought up through this mess of Weaver.
But when you say has she found it herself or has she found it through the mage?
That much I don't know, but they didn't implicitly say that there was a cairn, although I have my sources that confirmed it. But after discussing it with her and the mage and a certain Garu that I'll leave nameless because I'm getting something out of him in return, they let it slip. They mentioned our sacred places as far as our people are concerned, and then places of power. And then
Okay.
after speaking with someone recently, I had the confirmation I needed to know that it is a place of power. And a cairn, perhaps not in the same sense that we know it, but a place where Gaia's energy comes up nonetheless.
And our little mage friends are sucking it dry.
Well, there's a reason they call them cairn rapists. I don't know how true I can say that is the case or not.
Well, I suppose their power must come from Gaia in its own way. What we ask for and trade for, they take. Maybe. I don't know.
True.
So what are you going to do about this? Surely if the Everguru knew, it
They'd
could be
kill
avoided.
Alicia, and they would kill Jericho. There's a pretty clear line about what, well, take no action that allows a cairn to be violated.
What happens if you find a can that's already being violated? Are you meant to free it?
That's exactly what that tenet means. You don't let it continue to be desecrated. What makes it worse is that she is a fucking Philodox, a half-moon. She should know better. And on a personal level, it bothers me that she is participating in this.
Maybe Alicia's got some guile herself. You don't know what she's doing. If she's found out that there's this place through the mage, who knows? Maybe she's got a long-term plan to get the can back.
I personally think that she believes in the best in people. Outsiders, vampires, demons.
Treat everyone as the arm of the devil until they prove otherwise.
I don't think that's in her. Because she was far more open with me than I would have ever been with her in her situation.
Well, if she's going to do this kind of thing, she really should be more quiet about it.
She should. She should just keep her mouth shut. She's very lucky that the painted men left the city, because I think they would have strung her up by now. And with that information, I don't think even Blitzkrieg could have protected her.
It's a shame the painted men left. Even though they were quite boisterous, I did enjoy their company.
They were a
I made
warpath.
$100 out of it. No, 50 was it not? I forget the bet now.
You made some money that night.
Yeah.
I think you won from me, actually.
Well, I'm glad we both came out of it good.
Yes. So
Well,
this information is yours to do with what you will, but it's information you wanted. Information that the others wouldn't share with you.
thank you. Thank you for giving me information that would put a target on my head. But that's what I wanted, so that's what I get.
And now it's up to you to figure out why the Shadow Lord would share that information with you.
Well, I don't think I'm going to work that out today, but I think we've got a good thing going here. I think perhaps we could work together to better our little community. And I will look into the police and I'll look into going to the dodgy areas again, like you said, and see what I can find.
In the meantime, if you're looking for someone to be an ally that's impressionable, someone that you can work with without too many preconceptions. Look up a Wendigo in the Sept.
Which one?
He goes by the name of Ben Renshaw.
Ben. Is he new?
He's a cub.
Oh, okay. Well, Wendigo, though.
He's in the know of that little bit of information I shared with you. He's a Philodox as well. So he's a bit more even-tempered. He's not quite into the hoity-toity things. I brought him to my apartment one evening to discuss with him certain matters about Alicia. And he seemed to be very uncomfortable in a place that's on the upper class area.
Okay. Well, if he's true to his tribe, he probably grew up in a dirt hole somewhere.
Very, very much a possibility. But he's young, he's impressionable, and being Fury kinfolk, I think you'll have a better shot at him than, say, a Silverfang or a Glasswalker kinfolk would.
To be honest, well, can I call you Danica?
Can you repeat that?
Can I call you Danica? Or Danica, I suppose.
You drop my name, I think it might help.
Well, oh, well, at least I say hello and make myself known.
Well, if you're looking for protection in these areas, it might be a good idea to bring him along.
Oh, well,
He's young, and he'll probably be out to make a name for himself.
that's good to know. Thank you very much. And even though I did turn your stomach, if you did find someone that was tainted and too far gone, you could always still bring them to me.
We'll see. If we were going to do anything of that nature, we would need a facility, someplace to take it, and, well, keep it captive, so we could work on it.
It wouldn't last more than a night.
All the same, I don't think having a Fomori in a hospital would be a great idea.
No, no, I'm thinking, well, your idea maybe find a safe house somewhere. But anyway, that's for the future.
Yes. Anyway, I'm sure you have shifts to get back to.
Well, I'm just up the road, as are you.
I have to go back down into Wall Street this evening. Number one of a certain client of mine wants somebody to have on his arm this evening. And he's willing to pay for it. So I figure, why not? I don't have to carry anything on me, and I get paid a lucrative amount of money to just sit there and smile at people.
Hey, if you gotta use it.
Be surprised how willful these wolves of Wall Street are. One of the very few groups of people I can walk into and not have to worry about them scattering.
Well, they are quite close-minded. Some may say sociopathic even in what they do.
You have no idea.
And with all this talk of taint, how many of your Wall Street dates do you find that don't smell right, so to speak?
Dates. And she looks at him with just that expression of, I'm not liking what you're implying.
Oh, come on. I don't say anything bad here, Monsieur Chevalier. How many people do you meet in that social circle that you think could be tainted by worm?
Hmm. More than I care to admit here.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
But being a sociopath does not automatically make you worm tainted.
Indeed. Very true. There is just evil out there that's nothing to do with the worm.
Same can be said for everything. She grabs her bag and stands up. Well, or Anthony, I guess, isn't it? I'll be seeing you around. Keep in touch,
Well, I can
and
still keep these records coming for you.
that's a
So when
good
you want
idea.
another file, just get in contact.
Keep it up.
And thank you for investing your trust in me. I won't let you down.
I should hope not. And
You
with
don't
that,
think so?
she leaves a few bills on the table for the coffee and gives him one last nod before turning around and making her way back out into the cold.
When she leaves, Mega leaves out a sigh and slumps in his chair onto the coffee table or the table. It's been a long time since he's even thought about his wife and children, and this has been quite an emotional drain. And with that, the scene ends.